So we're going to get started because it looks like everybody's actually all here and on time. Thank you so much for coming out and spending your Saturday morning with me. I know there's a lot of really great options on Saturdays and it's beautiful weather. So I'll introduce myself and some other folks and then we'll get started into the content. My name is Caroline DiGiovanni. I'm a watershed restoration educator with the University of Maryland Extension. I cover Calvert County and St. Mary's County in my position. We had some partners in running this workshop that I would like to thank before we get started. The County Department of Public Works, they help me to transport the barrels to the workshop location from storage, and they also help to offset the cost of the barrels for residents of the county, so you actually got a 50% discount on the cost of the barrel. My other partners in this are the Calvert County Environmental Commission. They've helped to promote this workshop, and we have members of the commission present today. We have Kevin and Dave Campbell, and I'm going to give Dave a moment to say a little bit about the commission and their work in the county. And if you want to come up here, you can come to the front of the room real quick.
Thanks, Caroline. So I'm Dave Campbell. I'm chair presently of the Environmental Commission. This is an all-volunteer group. We call ourselves commissioners, but we're not elected. We just volunteered to sign up. We have hardly any money, but we have a little bit of funds that we do to promote things. Our goal is mostly to sort of a go-between between the public and the real commissioners. So if you have ideas about things that you want to change in the community, let us know. We can pass that on to the commission, and vice versa. If the commission says, we want some public input on this sort of issue, we can try to arrange that as well. One of the things we did recently was we encouraged the county to put bird-safe decals on the North Library at North Beach, so that reduced the number of bird strikes. And that just came up as a volunteer type thing. The commissioners thought it was a great idea, so we got that thing going. We have a Pump for the Bay initiative where the limited funds that we have, if you pump out your septic tank, you can fill out a form and enter a raffle. It doesn't cost you anything, or cost you to pump out your tank. But if you win the raffle, you can get reimbursed up to $500 to have your septic tank pumped out. And we have a couple of second and third prizes too, with gift cards and stuff like that. So we're trying to promote environmental awareness, get people to pump out their septic tanks, which you should do every 2 or 3 years, depending on the number of people in your household. Some of our other initiatives, I'm looking at Amalia in the back, giving you some hint. Oh yeah, radon awareness. You might see us at a booth at a few places. We're going to be at Bernie Fowler's Wade-In. We're going to be at Pratt, and we'll give. We have a limited number of radon test kits. Especially if you live in the northern end of the county, that could be more of an issue. So we try to distribute those for free or for a nominal cost. So a few things like that. If you have any more interest, please let us know. We have a website on the Calvert County webpage. You can submit some ideas through there, and we're here to help you guys out and help out the county.
Awesome. Thanks. Awesome. And our other wonderful partners in this today is the Calvert County Communications team. They're filming the workshop so that it can be an educational video posted to the county's page. So a little bit about the University of Maryland Extension. We are in every county in Maryland, and we have ag research centers throughout the state. We are the liaison between the university and the community. We deliver research and science-based education to the community of Maryland. We cover topics on everything from agriculture, forestry, water resources, health and wellness, financial wellness, 4-H youth programming. We do a huge amount of things. This QR code goes to our current program highlights, and I can come back to this slide if anybody wants to link to that. Before I dive into the topic of rain barrels, I always like to give a little background information so that we all have the same terminology and understanding of what we're talking about. So the first thing I want to talk about today is, what is a watershed? Why does this matter when it comes to water quality, land use, rain barrels? A watershed is simply an area of land where all of that surface runoff, rainwater, it all drains to a common body of water. Watersheds can be large. The entire green area is the Chesapeake Bay watershed. The Chesapeake Bay watershed receives drainage all the way from New York State, West Virginia, Delaware, it all ends up in the Chesapeake Bay at some point. So what they're doing in New York State can have an impact right here out in the Chesapeake Bay. They can be smaller, nested within the larger watershed. This is the breakdown of the major drainage basins of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So there's the Susquehanna, the Potomac, James, York. So you have little nesting dolls. So watersheds are natural boundaries. They're not made by man. So partnership in protecting water resources is important because we cross political boundaries. So it's all of our responsibility to protect our water resources. We have to all work together. What watershed are we in today? I pulled this off of a really great resource online. You can go to the county's website and they have a little GIS map feature that you can look at things like the watersheds in Calvert County. So today we're in the Parkers Creek watershed. If it were to rain on this property right now at the Community Resource Building, it would eventually drain to the Parkers Creek, and the Parkers Creek empties right out into the Chesapeake Bay. Next, I want to cover what is stormwater runoff. So stormwater runoff is simply precipitation that runs off of impervious surfaces. As it flows across the land surface, it can pick up pollutants along the way. Most stormwater runoff, it drains directly to the nearest body of water. It doesn't take a lot of rainfall to create a lot of runoff. So this is a picture in front of our building after maybe 30 minutes of rain. And you can see there's a substantial amount of runoff generated from all these impervious surfaces. Impervious surfaces are simply anything like a rooftop asphalt where the water can't percolate through to the soil. So rain barrels. This is what we all came here for today. Rain barrels, we all know physically what a rain barrel is, but really they're small-scale best management practices that individuals can adopt, and they actually do have measurable outcomes for reducing pollution from stormwater runoff that can be linked to them. Best management practices are simply anything that we can do to mitigate the effects of human development. How can we help to restore natural cycles back to the state before we came in and built up? Today, I'll cover some of the reasons why we might want to install a rain barrel. We'll examine some possible financial benefits. We'll talk about the environmental benefits of retaining stormwater on site with a rain barrel, and we'll look at some other little fringe benefits. One of the common things that I've seen in literature is the question of, can a rain barrel help me save money on my water bill? And I like to just examine numbers to think about this. So I went on the county website and I just pulled the current water and sewer rates. This is current. I know the county is going to a tiered system for billing soon, so this won't be valid by the end of the year probably. So everyone pays their base water rate. That's how everyone has that. And then you pay by your water use. So it's a variable rate per 1,000 gallons. And then I made up a scenario to think further into this. In southern Maryland, we have about a 24-week growing season between your last frost and your first frost. And in my little scenario I made up, I imagined I was a gardener and I wanted to water my garden with my rain barrel. So I'm using it for 24 weeks out of the year. I'm getting it filled by rainfall once a week and emptying it out once a week by watering my garden. And we do have enough rainfall in this region that that's a valid assumption. You have a 55-gallon barrel. Throughout your 24-week growing season, you can collect just over 1,300 gallons of water. So when you just do the quick math and calculate out, it's about $4 in water that you're actually collecting and saving per barrel per season. And of course, this is just a made-up scenario for fun to look at numbers. If you have more barrels, you save more. If you have more rainfall and empty it more continuously, it's just fun to look at numbers and think about things. The other thing worth noting is this happens in neighboring counties. It's absolutely not a thing in Calvert County, and there is nothing on the horizon, but there are stormwater remediation fees, or what's called rain taxes, in our neighboring counties like Anne Arundel County and Charles County. And in those counties, they actually do offer their residents a discount on this fee that's levied on their taxes for installing 2 rain barrels. So for example, in Charles County, if a resident of that county installs 2 rain barrels, they fill out a form, send it to the county, they get a 50% discount on their stormwater remediation fee on their tax bill. But we don't have that in this county, so we can't get that discount. So those are the financial considerations around your rain barrel. Into the environmental benefits, this is where the real bread and butter of this is. So how does land use affect stormwater runoff? In a natural forested system, you have very minimal runoff. Calvert County is one of the fastest growing counties in Maryland right now. If you look up our population, it's nearly doubled since 1990. So in 1990, the population of the county was around 50,000. And in 2022, it was about 95,000, give or take. So we have a lot of development and a lot of land use change happening in this county. This is right near here in Prince Frederick, where 30 years ago, we had a forested area, and now we've changed to development. There's been huge increases in impervious surfaces, and nature can't adapt and keep up with humans. That's the point in this, is nature was cruising along, doing its thing here, and then we've come in and added impervious surface. This is increasing the amount of runoff. So this graphic does a really nice job of demonstrating the runoff in different land uses. So in your natural forested state, you have a very minimal amount of runoff. You have good amounts of infiltration back into the groundwater. Things are cruising along. As we develop, we're increasing our runoff. That runoff has to go somewhere. We're increasing runoff. So that's where things like best management practices like rain barrels come in, where we want to try to mitigate this effect of development. We want to try to retain runoff on site. So reducing our stormwater runoff volume can help to reduce our risk of flooding. If we're retaining our stormwater on site, it's not running off, it's not overwhelming our sewer systems or our streams. When we have a huge volume of runoff overwhelming streams, it's increasing the erosion in the stream bed because you have huge volumes of water at a high velocity, and it could potentially erode the stream banks and cause down cutting into the bed of the stream. This destroys aquatic environments, and it increases the sediment load in waterways. Sediment loading in waterways can be an issue for a whole host of reasons. Downstream, where the sediment eventually gets deposited, submerged aquatic vegetation beds can end up becoming buried by that sediment, and those are nurseries for little things like blue crabs. So increasing in the sediment in the waterways is destroying habitat, aquatic habitat. The other interesting thing, this is another just to be aware of, this isn't happening in Calvert County, but it's happening in cities like Washington, D.C. Older cities have what are called combined sewer systems. We only have separate sewer systems in our county. But the sanitary sewer and the stormwater sewer go through the same exact system. And when there's a large volume of rainfall runoff going into that system, the treatment plant at the end of the system cannot keep up. So it overflows directly into waterways untreated. And retaining stormwater on site is a small way that they can help prevent those overflows, but they really have very large-scale infrastructure projects that the DC Water website actually does a really cool job of explaining these huge infrastructure projects and how it's helping to reduce combined sewer overflows. But retaining stormwater on site is something everyone can do to try to just help mitigate these things. Groundwater conservation. So if we think back to the graphic a few slides ago, where, I'll go back to it real quick because I like this. There's good infiltration in our natural setting. And then as we develop, we're losing infiltration. We're not recharging our groundwater. So retaining your stormwater on site with a rain barrel so that it doesn't just run off. And soaking it back into the ground can help to recharge your groundwater supply over time by letting it, instead of it running off the house top and going down the street, down the drain, you can keep it on site and soak it back into the ground for groundwater recharge. Using a rain barrel will also help to reduce the demand on the potable water supply that we are pumping out of the ground. So this will, one, it'll just generally conserve the resource, and two, it will help to prolong the life of our infrastructure in the long term, because we're keeping our demand low so the infrastructure doesn't have to grow to accommodate a huge increase in water demand. And over time, this is something that could potentially help to keep the general cost of water down if the water supply infrastructure doesn't have to be continually upgraded and increased in size to meet an increase in demand. So using harvested rainwater can help reduce the demand on the supply. It can also help reduce the pumping out of the ground. So when you have excess pumping of groundwater, you end up with what's called a cone of depression in your groundwater table. This cone of depression can actually pull the groundwater flow towards, and if there's a shallow well here, that shallow well could potentially run dry. You could potentially have wetlands drying up. And it can also exacerbate or cause saltwater intrusion. If you're pumping the fresh groundwater excessively, it could draw in saltwater potentially. So there's a lot of considerations around groundwater. Some other things that rain barrels can do to protect your water resources is, one, they'll capture the first flush of rainfall off of your rooftop. The first flush of rain that's running off the rooftop is almost like a rinse cycle, and it's considered the dirty water. And it's nutrient loaded with things like animal droppings off of the rooftop. So if you retain that first little bit with your rain barrel, and then the excess that maybe the rain barrel can't accommodate, that should be a more clean water running off. And in the same thought process, it can also help to mitigate thermal pollution. A lot of waterways are actually impaired for temperature. So when you have a high temperature in a liquid, the liquid's capacity to retain a dissolved gas decreases. So we need dissolved oxygen in the water for things that breathe with gills. And if we have a superheated waterway, things that breathe with gills, like fish and aquatic insects, might not be able to get enough oxygen from the water that they're living in. So that could impact our aquatic life, and it could impact the whole food chain from the insects up to the fish. So if you think about how hot a rooftop could be in southern Maryland in the middle of the summer, and your rooftop is superheating the rainwater, if you're keeping that first little superheated section in the barrel, it could help mitigate things a little. So some more little fringe benefits of having a rain barrel. Your plants will prefer rainwater over your tap water. If you're on a municipal system, there's chlorine added. If you're on a well, you might be running your water through a water softener that's adding dissolved minerals to your water, and these things can build up in your potted plants, and they might not like that. It's also going to have, at times, a light fertilizing effect for your plants because of the nutrients that are retained in the water. And then it's just generally nice to have a source of water for rinsing off garden tools, muddy boots, muddy hands. And in an emergency where you've lost power and you're on a well, it's nice to have a stash of water to do things like flush a toilet still. So the benefits to the environment are pretty extensive. And one rain barrel won't totally change the world, but many rain barrels can add up and have a positive impact. Next, we want to look at how much water can we actually collect. It's pretty amazing how much water you can collect off of a surface in a small rainstorm even. So there is a formula. You can get your roof area times precipitation in inches times this little factor, and it will give you the amount of runoff. So I give you an example, my home. I went on Google Earth. I really like free online systems, and Google Earth is free, it's online, and they have this really cool measuring tool. So you can zoom in on your home, go to the measuring tool, draw a polygon, and it'll give you the square footage of your home. So my home's roof is about 1,200 square feet. Our average annual rainfall where I live is about 43 inches, give or take. So in a single year, it's 32,000 gallons of water running off of my roof in just that little 1,200 square foot home. So it's an incredible amount of water. You can fill this rain barrel almost 600 times in a single year. So it's like this whole room like filled with water off of a single rooftop. So that's where the cumulative effect, we can all think of, we all have homes that we live in. That's where the big cumulative impact really is. So in a single afternoon rainstorm of a 1/4 inch, my little home will generate almost 200 gallons of water off of my rooftop. So going further into this, you want to consider how your roof is segmented when you are selecting locations for your barrel around your home. Where are your downspouts located and how much of the roof are they actually draining? So I know I have a downspout on this corner over here, and then I have one that drains the center right here in the middle. So I measured those two segments separately. On my center segment of my roof, I can easily fill a 55-gallon rain barrel with a 1/4 inch of rain in a single afternoon. It would overflow the barrel. And then even on my little tiny segment of my roof over here that goes to a single downspout, it's still, in a 1/4 inch rain, it will be about 45 gallons. So it's pretty substantial how quickly your barrels can fill. So you want to think about that, how much area of your roof is draining to what downspouts and how many, like I would not put multiple rain barrels at this corner because it might not be filling them and it might be a waste of space, but maybe in the center you could have more. So you want to think about that. And this is a cool measuring tool, like I said. All right, so to the actual fun part, the barrel. So those are all the fun environmental benefits and fringe benefits. If you got a barrel today, which many of you did, it will come with a basic standard setup. All the barrels are pre-cut on the top and pre-drilled for all the fixtures. Every barrel comes with a drain valve, a top strainer. You can use this as the inflow. That pops right in the top securely. And then they come pre-drilled with a drain, an overflow, and an overflow. So the reason I put 2 overflows is so that you could use one side. You could potentially daisy chain over to another barrel. You can build yourself a little hose piece. Very simply, just go to the hardware store, buy 2 female hose ends, cut a small section off of a hose, and then you can use this to daisy chain over to another barrel to collect more water. Or all the barrels come with a little cap where you could cap it off if you're not quite ready to have multiple barrels. And then you'll be able to choose which side you want your overflow to go to and just hook a garden hose to that side and direct it any way you want. So I tried to make them very adaptable to meet multiple needs. So those are all the pieces in the barrel. Every barrel has a little check sheet on it. So if you got a barrel, just check in your barrel to make sure all the items are actually in there. They should be, but I am a human. So this is just the prep work that I did ahead of time. It's very, very easy to cut the top of the barrel. You just trace a circle, drop a hole through with a drill so that you can then drop a jigsaw blade in and cut out the circle really quick. Overflow and drain, drilled the hole with a spade bit. They'll screw right in. The brass fixtures have a garden hose thread end and a regular NPT thread. The holes are drilled so that the NPT end goes in the barrel. Sometimes the hole is not perfectly exactly the size that you need, so you'll want to take a knife or I've found a pair of scissors with a beveled edge works really well to just very gently shave off a tiny bit of the plastic, because sometimes the hole is just slightly too small and you'll have trouble getting the fixture screwed in, but it helps to just shave a little tiny bit off and really be patient with it, because it'll be worth taking time in the end, because you'll get a nice flush union. You don't need to use caulk or any sort of plumbing tape on these. I find that you do get a good seal just screwing directly into the barrel and just taking your time and making sure it goes in straight. And over time, if it ever does lose its good seal, you could caulk around it. But I find that works really great like that. Some options. All the barrels have the drain and this, but if you wanted to go to the hardware store and get yourself a little watering can spigot, you could just pop another hole in your barrel, install that. We talked about daisy chaining them together. Another cool thing I saw recently, instead of daisy chaining at the top, you can daisy chain at the bottom of your barrel so that it all will flow to the one barrel to empty, so you don't have to empty each individual barrel. And there's actually some demo rain barrels on the side of the building that we can look at today where they are daisy chained at the bottom. So I thought that was really cool, but it's top or bottom, either works. And then the other cool thing that I'm sure you've all seen is the rain barrel art. You can paint them. There's some paints out there that are specific for plastic and will adhere properly. The barrel just needs to be cleaned up a little bit and painted beautifully if you're an artist. The actual installation of the rain barrel is fairly simple. You just need, the most important thing is having a level site. A full rain barrel can weigh over 450 pounds when it's full of water. So you need that site to be level so that it's not like a tipping hazard. And if you choose to build a platform, just make sure that your platform is very sturdy, because it is very heavy when it's full. You could also tether the barrel to the side of whatever building you are installing it onto if you're worried about high winds blowing it away when it's not full of water. And it would be good as a prevention of tipping. There's a couple different ways to install your barrel on your downspout. The quick, simple way is this one, where you just cut your downspout, get a hacksaw, get one of these from the hardware store. They flip. One end's for one size downspout, one end's for another size downspout, and just hacksaw your downspout, bam, fill the barrel from the top. There are also on the market some other really cool options where you can maintain your downspout in place. These tap into it. So this one, it's pretty cool. There's a couple different brands out there of this model where you cut your downspout, install it in line, and plug your downspout to the bottom, and they just open and close as you want to collect water. And then another option, this one, I really like this one because it keeps the downspout in place, so you don't have to worry about overflows. It drills into the downspout, and it has a little rubber piece that you insert that kind of makes a gutter around the downspout, and it collects water until the barrel's full, and then the barrel backflows and continues in your downspout. Those are pretty cool, and the demo barrel on the side of the building has one of these models, and then there's another demo barrel that has one of these installation setups, so you can see both of these on the building today. Some quick safety considerations with your rain barrel. The water is not potable. I hear anecdotes of folks using rain barrels to water things like chickens, goats, but for human consumption, I would not. If you're watering a vegetable garden with your collected rainwater, you want to water at the base of the plant and not be dumping the water into anywhere where it will come in contact with the edible portion of the plant, just for food safety considerations, because as we discussed earlier, there's nutrients in that water that could potentially be pathogens in your food. Use a food safe barrel if you go out and obtain your own barrels so that you're sure that it's not going to have any sort of weird contaminants in it. The hugest consideration, I put this picture in here because it's funny to me that this is a huge safety issue. You want to make sure you have a secure lid, because an open top barrel like this is a drowning hazard for humans and animals. So you just want to make sure that you're protecting anybody from that. And having a secure lid will also help to exclude mosquitoes from breeding in your barrel. If you do have mosquitoes occurring in your barrel, just drain the barrel, empty it totally out. Or if it's a continuous issue over time, you could potentially use the BT tablets, Bacillus thuringiensis. They're a natural bacterium that will kill the mosquitoes, and it's benign for other living creatures. Sturdy level base we discussed, but reiterating, 450 pounds of water in a barrel. Be careful, don't let it fall on anybody. And from the research that I can find, your roofing materials are benign and really shouldn't be affecting the water, from what I can find currently. General maintenance, just drain and empty your barrel regular intervals, and don't store water in your barrel if it is going to be freezing, because the freezing could potentially split your barrel open. And just generally keep things clean, make sure you check your connections routinely. And if you want, you can periodically scrub them clean with soap and water if you're trying to go for a nice, clean looking barrel. So in the beginning, I talked about rain barrels having measurable reductions for stormwater pollution. This is a tool that is on the Extension website, and it is for tracking non-regulated small-scale best management practices like rain barrels. Nobody's regulating your rain barrel, but we like to know about that because we can include that possibly in future data sets to meet water quality goals for the Chesapeake Bay. So you could go on this tool and put your rain barrel into it, and it'll get included on a map. And then this tool has a count of how many best management practices are on the map, the total area that is treated by those best management practices, the area of impervious surface. And when I can go into this tool, and it'll tell you how much nitrogen, how much phosphorus, how much sediment those practices are offsetting in the water quality goals. So that's a nice tool that we have. Just real quick, rain barrels, they are not the only solution. There's other small scale things that we can do to mitigate our impact on stormwater. You can do things as simple as diverting downspouts from pervious areas like a driveway onto a front lawn. You can install a rain garden where you'll retain stormwater on site and let it slowly soak into the ground. Even better, you can install a rain garden where a rain barrel overflows into that garden, so you're layering your best management practices. You can remove unnecessary impervious surfaces on your property, have no mow areas, and plant a tree. I could do a whole presentation on the environmental benefits of trees in relation to stormwater. It's amazing how much a single tree can do to mitigate stormwater. So, in closing, many small-scale actions can really add up to big change. If we install rain barrels and rain gardens, it's like a little filtering effect. Like one will catch some, the next will catch some, and then maybe your rain garden overflows into the retention basin that the community maintains, and the retention basin helps to protect the water source that it eventually ends up into. So it's a filtering, like a small thing here, small thing there, small thing there, can have a big impact at the end of the chain. So that's really the point of this. So great things are done by a series of small things brought together. And this is my contact. If you want to follow up via email, it is the best way to get a hold of me. And if anybody has any questions now, we can do question and answer. Go ahead.
Can We had a rain barrel similar to this. Actually, we had 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
One of the problems is that you brought this up in winter time. It's so important to get them drained.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
Did it crack?
it cracks right down here because the water collects down here, and you have to take it and flip it over.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, freezing temperatures do cause wear and tear, and
Yeah.
eventually they started cracking.
Yeah.
I think we got a good 5 years out of them, and then that was it.
Cool. That's valuable information. The effect of the force that freezing water can have as it expands is incredible. So thank you for reiterating the maintenance. It's important. Even in southern Maryland, where we're warm and toasty most of the time, we can get pretty intense freezes.
You have to disconnect it and then
Yeah.
flip it over and get all the water out.
Definitely.
That's where we had our cracking, is
In
right
the-
there.
Yeah.
We could never, we tried.
Oh.
We used, we had that white tape that is impervious, you know, you can put it
Yeah.
around cracks. And that worked for a while, and then it just failed.
Mhm.
It's plastic, so what are
It's-
you gonna do?
Yeah. Well, thank you for reiterating the importance of maintaining things properly. Did anybody else have questions, comments? Go ahead.
So if we wanted to partly use the rain barrel more for preventing some erosion from fast runoff from the rooftops instead of for gardening, because a lot of the year don't really need to be watering.
Yeah.
Is there some attachment that's perforated or whatever that you would attach to that to then?
Like a soaker hose?
Just like a soaker hose, okay.
Yeah. So anecdotally, I have heard that people do have success using soaker hoses on these. I have never used a soaker hose off of a rain barrel, but I know some soaker hoses need pressure for the water to go through, and you are not going to get that much pressure from a rain barrel. So you might have to do some trial and error experiments over what soaker hose really actually works off of the barrel. And I would love to hear back if you do have success with the soaker hose, because that's something I do need to find out more about. But yes, it will be great to slow that stormwater and slowly reduce the speed of release to reduce your erosion issue. Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
Just one tip from experience. You talked about a spade bit to drill a hole, but I found, I don't know what they call it, but like cup-shaped attachments with teeth at one end, which come in different sizes.
Yeah.
It gives you a much cleaner cut than a spade.
Yes, and I can tell you exactly why I don't use the hole saw. I drill like hundreds of holes at a time, and clearing out the hole saw is very tedious. Yeah, so what I do with the spade bit, sometimes if you go really fast, spade bits do not give you a good circle. But if you go really, really slow at first, let it bore out the circle, and then punch through with the spade bit. Yeah, thank you. Though, if you were just drilling individually for yourself at your home, I would definitely use a hole saw, because it will give you a more perfect circle. And you want to make sure with a hole saw that you are perpendicular to your barrel, because if you drill in on an angle, your hole saw might end up more like an oval saw. So perpendicular is good. Yeah. Pro tips. Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead.
Are there any issues with algae forming and building up?
In general, no, because you should be emptying your barrel regularly so that it is not causing an algal issue. You can see the ones on the side of the building. There's a set of tan ones that have been on the building for years, and they don't have algae buildup on it. And then there's the set on this side of the building where they're this barrel, and we installed them about a month and a half ago, I think, and they don't have any algae buildup. What you will get sometimes is sediment from asphalt shingles, the little granules from them. Sometimes they'll build up a little bit in the bottom of the barrel too, which I forgot. But algae is generally not an issue. But if it is, just dump your barrel and scrub it out. Go ahead.
So how often do you have to empty it to prevent the algae? Because we did have algae.
You did have algae.
Yeah, but we didn't like empty the barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ideally, to get the maximum stormwater benefit is emptying it between every rainstorm in an ideal scenario. Just slowly releasing the water. I don't know the exact interval though to prevent
Okay,
that
let's make sure it gets it.
algae. Yeah.
So I had two questions which you answered about when it froze.
Cool.
But my other question is, I'm concerned about having to cut your downspout, and then removing the barrel because it'll break if it freezes.
Mm-hmm.
Do they always have to be connected to a downspout?
So to be able to collect a meaningful amount of water, yes, it needs to be connected to a downspout that is draining a rooftop area. If it's just sitting out in the open, it's really only going to collect the rainfall. So you might only get like over a full season, it would take a full season basically to fill a barrel in our. So it has to be connected to an area that is draining.
All right,
And-
so in the winter, when you cut that, after you've cut it,
Yeah.
now you're left with another situation, right?
Yes. So that's where I am liking more and more these models of diverters where you cut your downspout, install this, and then the downspout continues below. In this scenario, you could potentially save the bottom half of your downspout and find a way to couple it back together for the winter month, like have, yeah, or connect. Yeah. Yeah, because these do expand out quite a bit, but that is why I can send you links to these if you email me to keep the inline downspout.
I don't want to be slow, but actually, how does that middle one actually work?
So this piece right here is on a hinge, and it opens and closes. So when it's open, it's blocking the water from continuing down the downspout, and then it drops it out into the barrel. And then when you close it, it lets the water continue down your downspout. Yeah. These, I really like these because I don't want people to not have downspouts on their homes in the winter. Go ahead.
From an elevation perspective for the rain barrel, if you have a situation where your land grades upwards and your rain barrel is going to be low, is it important to put it on cinder blocks to get it up level where the ground is, just from a drainage perspective?
Yeah, you would have to because the water wouldn't flow uphill, and you could potentially drop a submersible pump in it and pump it out.
Idea, yeah.
They're fairly inexpensive, but yeah, because the water won't flow uphill for you.
Build up a layer.
Yeah, and then even then, it would only flow to the level which you've built up to.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, but
Thanks.
maybe sump pumps. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like I said, we had 4 or 5 of these, and I would tell you, they fill up fast.
They do.
In a rainstorm, depending on what roof area you have, we were amazed at how quickly in a rainstorm. I mean, it was overflowing. It was so much.
Yeah.
And we had to do what she suggested, was put on additional barrels.
Yeah.
It was, you got so much water, it was hard to use it all, because there's just so much. Of course, we had one on each corner of our house.
Yeah.
And
And that's,
now we're just down to 1 in our garden, because it was just a lot of work to keep up with it. But it is worthwhile. I'm not saying not to do it, I'm just saying, be aware that you're gonna be collecting a lot of water.
yeah, it is. It's an incredible amount of water. That's why I had these other, the how much water can I collect? It's astounding.
It was more than we could use.
I'm curious if there's a valid concern with keeping that much water by the base of your house, by your foundation is.
So that's why you want to just check on the regular and make sure it's not leaking anywhere and going straight at the base of your home. And you want to make sure that you are using overflows of some sort to divert the excess.
And it's
Oh.
heavy enough that if it's on a solid base, tipping shouldn't.
If it's a solid level base, it should not be an issue. If it's a concern, 'cause if you have like small children that are gonna like pull on it, and the demo barrels on the side of the building, they are tied to the side of the building. So I've also heard sometimes people drop cinder blocks into the bottom of them. Then you lose some water holding capacity where they think it makes it more secure. But it is a safety concern that if you are concerned enough, I would tie it to a building, and that would eliminate the hazard or reduce it. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm really happy to see such great attendance, and you can follow up via email if you have any other further questions, or just grab me now.